Hello, Year 10 English. We have been exploring the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, and we're getting right to the end of this topic, which means, you know it, I'm going to make you write an essay. However, before we do that, I want to lay a foundation by thinking about the themes of the novel. Now, this idea of themes is obviously really important in English, but what does a theme actually mean? Well, I like to just keep it really simple and say that a theme is just a big or important idea that is explored in a text, a novel, a film, whatever. So I also like the alliteration if we said themes and threads. We can think of a theme as a thread that's woven through a narrative. And the author is exploring it and has something to say about this big idea. Now, there's so many rich themes in this novel. There's lots we could choose from. I've identified these four that I think are particularly relevant. The first one, hopefully, is very obvious. Hopefully, as soon as you're reading the novel, you're going, I think this book is about racism. Obviously, the trial of Tom Robinson is really important, and generally about the way the society thinks about African Americans. So that's racism specifically. Now, racism is one form of prejudice, and while the novel does really center in on racism with the whole case of Tom Robinson, prejudice more broadly is a theme that's explored in the novel. And I think two particular ways we see this is in its discussion of gender, the expectations that are placed on Scout about the way she'll dress, about the way she'll act. And another form of prejudice that we see a lot in the novel is classism. This idea that people are born into different classes. They can be higher or lower than other people depending on their wealth or their ancestry. So I think we see prejudice explored in a range of different ways. This next one I struggled with. There's sort of a lot that I've mixed into this one. This idea of morality is the idea of what does it mean to do the right thing, to live a righteous life? And I think there's a few really important ideas that come out of this. One is to do with justice. I mean, the whole novel centers around a court case where justice is not served. Justice means getting what someone deserves, a fair go, whether that's rewarding good behavior or punishing bad behavior. So this idea of serving justice is important to the novel. And tied into that is the idea of courage as well. I think the novel really explores this idea of what does it cost to do the right thing? Will you do the right thing even when it's hard? And so that ties into that idea of morality as well. And the last one here, growing up, this idea of maturity, of gaining wisdom and going from being naive and ignorant to someone who's informed and has an understanding of the world is another really important theme in this novel. So these are the four that I've identified. Each one sort of branches off and you could talk about different things. But the essay I give you and in the exam coming up, they'll all center around something to do with these themes. So it's really important that we consider them further. It's still. So to help us think through this topic of these different themes a bit further, I'm going to get you guys to contribute to this shared Google Sheet. I've filled it in myself so that I'm contributing too, and I'll use that to help explain how to fill it in. So you can see, and you'll find on the sheet your own name twice. And the idea there is that there's two bits of information I want from you. I want you to share, as it says up here, one quote. In fact, I'm going to change that so it's quote and an event or character. So let me explain what I mean by that. So I've got here a quote, first of all. So I'm sharing one quote and one bit of information about either an event or a character. So here's my quote. It's a sin to kill a mockingbird. I put it in quotation marks because it's a quote. And I've also identified there that it was Atticus who said it. It wasn't just part of the narration. It was actually a character stating that. And I've indicated what page that was on. It's on page 99 of the copy of the novel that we are using. Now, here's the trick. This quote that I've chosen it specially because it relates to so many themes. I mean, it's pretty much the title of the novel. It's obviously important in the novel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little Y for yes under each of these headings that relate to the themes that I've just been talking about. So does It's a Sin to Kill a Mockingbird help us think about racism? Well, absolutely it does, because I think really Atticus is probably talking about Tom Robinson, and he's talking about the unfair treatment of African Americans. So yes, this helps us think about racism. Anything that's related to racism will automatically be related to prejudice, though not necessarily the other way around. So yes, it helps us think about prejudice because it's helping us think about not treating people unfairly. This is a moral lesson that Atticus is teaching his child. So it's a principle, it's an idea to live by. It's about justice, and it's about doing what is right. So yes, this relates to the theme of morality. And I think it's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I could say it's also to do with growing up. It's one of the life lessons that Scout learns as she grows up and develops a better sense of understanding of the world. So while I don't think it fits growing up... Oh, my lights just went out. I'm back. My goodness, I'm having a lot of interruptions today as I try to make this video. So I was just in the middle of saying growing up, while I think it's a little bit of a stretch, it's not too big a stretch. So I'm gonna credit that one too and say that yes, this quote could also relate to growing up because it's one of the important life lessons that Scout learns as she grows up. Okay, so that's what I'm doing for quotes. That's my quote. I also have to share either an event or some information about a character that can help us understand that relates to these themes in some way. So I've chosen this one. I chose one right early on, page 14 to 16. It talks about this in chapter 1. At the end of chapter 1, Scout and Dill dare Jem to run up and touch the Radleys' house. This is a childish game that they're involved in, and it reveals their ignorant views of Boo Radley and how they respond to this legend of Boo Radley. Sorry, I've had a lot of traffic through as I'm trying to make this video. So as I was saying, this childish game reveals their ignorant views of Boo Radley and how they respond to sort of the legend that surrounds him. I've got the page number where I got that event from. I've tried to indicate in my little description here, I didn't want to write too much, but I've tried to indicate why is this relevant? Why do I think this is an important event and what does it tell us about the characters? So you can use that as a bit of a guide when you're doing your own. I don't think this relates really to racism, but it does relate to prejudice because it relates to that theme as the children are prejudging Boo Radley. They've got assumptions and misunderstandings about who he is and what he's like, and due to that, they're engaged in this silly game. I think it doesn't directly tie into the theme of morality, so I'm going to skip that one. However, I think it really closely ties to the idea of growing up. It's part of the childish games that we see, particularly in the first part 1 of the novel, the first half of the novel. And it's a really good example to demonstrate how Scout early on has these ignorant views that we slowly see her developing and growing out of as the novel progresses. So there's 2 examples. You might come up with better ones. I hope you do. But that's a bit of a demonstration of what you need to do to fill in this spreadsheet. Think of one quote and one bit of information about a character or an event in the novel. Put the page references and then tell us what themes, which of these 4 themes does it align to. And your goal is to try and find ones that align to as many themes as possible so that we can try to get some really rich evidence that will tap into many different ideas. Okay, good luck with that. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with so that we can keep studying this novel together.